Customers expect convenience. If you're not offering a smooth and seamless experience, you're just not going to win that customer. Hi, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jack.
I started Commusoft back in 2006 with the intention of transforming the way field service companies manage their businesses.
And over the last 3 years, I've been speaking with hundreds of companies, learning all about their current struggles and their goals for the future.
In today's episode of Success in the Field, we'll be looking at how convenience impacts the customer experience. We'll be looking at three aspects: location, time, and ease of access. We'll also be joined by our friends over at TrueQuote to find out how technology has impacted the plumbing, heating and gas industry and how they quote for new boilers.
It feels like getting a definition of convenience would probably be the best place to kick off today's show.
So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, convenience is the state of being able to proceed with something without difficulty, which to me basically means it's easy. Amazon is easy. It's convenient, and therefore I buy from them.
You know what the most convenient thing is for me right now is about 10 meters down that way, there's a shop that I live above, and it is the most convenient thing in the world. If I need a beer, if I want an ice cream, if we run out of loo roll, all I need to do is put my slippers on, walk downstairs, and make the purchase. I go there because it's just super easy, it's cheap, and it's the most convenient thing that I know of.
Would you, though, go down the road if the beer was cheaper?
Probably not, no, because it's further. I think humans are weird in that sense, is that we'll always often pay more for things just for the convenience. So many times I paid the $5.99 extra to get a next day delivery on something that I definitely could have waited the 2-day delivery that they suggested. I also feel the further away that you get from your house, the better you need to dress. The shop downstairs, I can go there in my shorts, my t-shirt. If I go to an M&S, for example, I got to put my jeans, my shoes, my shirt on. I got to smarten up a bit more. One thing that I would note, though, on a more serious matter is that I don't think the shop chose to be convenient. They're just there.
Whilst the shop may not have chosen to locate themselves underneath your flat, unless, of course, you're buying an incredible amount of beer and ice cream, I think the idea of location and convenience is a pretty well-known strategy. Look at Pret and Tesco's, for example. These are businesses that spend literally millions of pounds trying to be on as many roads and as many corners as humanly possible. I think Tesco have something just shy of 3,500 stores, of which nearly 1,700 of those are the Tesco Express stores.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point. I mean, I'd be interested to know, though, how Tesco's idea, how Pret's idea of being everywhere can relate back to field service companies. A small family company, they don't have millions and millions of pounds. How can they be everywhere?
I think it all depends, right? It depends on the type of business that you want to be. We have a client, for example, that is super reactive. His guarantee is you call him, he will have an engineer at your house within 3 hours. And he operates all over the country. And he does that because he has engineers all over the country and he schedules out from their homes. But just as importantly, he doesn't pre-plan a whole day or a whole week in advance. He literally wakes up as the calls come in, he's plotting them on a map and he's scheduling the nearest engineer to those jobs. And the engineers are only getting one job at a time in the day. They wake up, they see their first job of the day, they go to that job. When that job's finished, the office deploy the next nearest job. So they're using location as a convenient strategy, and it's all part of their marketing and it's all part of their unique selling point of it as a business. If you're a smaller company and you're not nationwide, though, I do think you can still use convenience to a certain extent. Don't have all your engineers come into the office in the morning, schedule from their homes. It just gives you a bit of a wider berth in terms of being able to get engineers to your customers a bit quicker because those engineers are going to naturally live closer to groups of customers.
So are we saying then that location only really comes into play when looking at convenience if you're quite a reactive company?
Yeah, definitely.
Convenience isn't just about location though. How many times have you tried to call your energy supplier or your internet supplier only to find that they're shut? So many consumers, including us, just work the normal 9 to 5, right? And the only time we have during the day is lunchtime. And we all know what lunchtime looks like. It's a small window of time where it's very busy often, and sometimes it just gets missed altogether, which leaves us with about half an hour in the evening to call this company, by which time they're shut. And that's not very convenient at all, not being able to speak to the company when you want to.
How do businesses, though, learn from that? It's not realistic that a small business is going to be open 24/7.
Of course, I absolutely agree. And I don't think we're asking, or we're not telling companies to stay open 24/7, but what is possible and what we can advise them to do is try and come up with ways to be more convenient at the times when your customers are calling you. I think in this day and age, it's so easy for your website to get pushed to one side. If a customer comes online and they can't find what they're looking for straight away, they'll just close the tab, open a new one, and find a new company. But I've got two ideas, though, that we can discuss around how you can become more convenient for your customers. The first one is something that I used to come across quite a lot when I first started at Commusoft a few years back, and it's call centers, third-party call centers. I used to pick up the phone, call a company, and it would go through to a happy-sounding person. You could tell they're in a call center because there was lots of noise and other calls going on in the background, but it was convenient. The phone got picked up. I assume customers could get what they wanted straight away if it was to leave a message or if it was to book something in. I imagine they're fairly cost effective. On the other hand, though, I can see them only really making sense if you're quite a reactive company and you've got the resources to kind of cater for it.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on the type of business you are and the kind of customer journey that you want to provide to your customers. There's no point someone calling up at 10 or 11 p.m. With an emergency if all that call center person's going to do is make a note and you're going to call them the next day. It sort of becomes a bit pointless and worthless.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely. The second point, or the second thought I had, was around chatbots as well, which I know is something we've discussed quite a lot on this show, and we've discussed off the show as well, and how useful they are. I think the best thing about them is that they almost act as an out-of-hours office person. You've got something on your website who can answer basic questions. They can book meetings, they can book surveys without someone having to be there and someone monitoring it. I think some interesting stats that we found was that most of our traffic came through our chatbot on the website out of hours when no one's there, which just made it even more worthwhile. On the other hand, though, I think that they're not intelligent, and I'll be surprised if they do get to a point where they can have a full, meaningful conversation with a person, which inherently means you're going to need someone sat behind the chatbot anyway.
One thing that we haven't really mentioned, though, is your website. Let's put aside for a moment reactive jobs and talk more about customers online looking for information around an installation. The convenience there is if there's information on your website, if there's pricing information on your website, and there's testimonial information, they're going to be able to educate themselves much more before they inevitably need to reach out to you and book in a survey. Getting prices for jobs also, though, needs to be easy. We had a chat recently, Jack, about a company you were talking to. They were absolutely adamant doing quotes on site was the only way forward.
Yeah, he was for sure only ever going to do on-site quotes. He had a few valid points that definitely made sense. I thought I'd share some of them. So the first one he said was around measurements and how an online quoting tool, or even doing it through FaceTime or a WhatsApp call, you're not going to get the most accurate measurements from the customer in terms of, the size of the cupboard the boiler's going into or something like that. The other thing he said was customers won't often know everything that comprises the quote. So for a surveyor to go there, they're able to just be a lot more thorough with their investigations and survey it and quote it a lot more accurately as well. He gave me a scenario where he got to a point where it was in his old company where he was doing quotes online, and they sent an engineer out to do the job. The engineer got there, and there was just a terrible install from the previous one, and they didn't know that, and it added an extra day of labor on top, which wasn't quoted for, so they ended up losing money on it. The final point he made was just around customer experience. Getting there, shaking a hand, and seeing the customer in person, he felt was just a much better way of quoting.
Yeah, I can understand that. I actually had the complete opposite conversation with a couple of clients recently who used to quote on site but had gone now down the much more digital route. So we were having this conversation about whether you could accurately quote using photos and video and stuff. One of these customers, interestingly, didn't even go that far. They would pick the phone up, speak to someone. They would say, is it this type of work? Yes, fine, it's going to cost you this much. And it was almost like a tick list, quick price over the phone, and that was it. And the second customer, they would actually do like a video call or a sort of FaceTime call, or they would ask for photos or video content to be sent to them by email. And they would quote based on all of that information. I think the sentiment for both, though, was quite simple. Having a surveyor or a salesperson or even an engineer go to site and do all these quotes when they're not being paid to do it was just a cost to the business. And that engineer or that person wasn't actually generating revenue. So they felt that, yes, some of these jobs may make their normal profit margin, may be fine. Some they may lose a bit. Some may they gain a bit, where it was an easier job than they had quoted for. And that overall balanced things out and just meant that, you win some, you lose some, but the overall was good.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, based off that then, what do you think the future is of quoting when it comes to convenience?
I think it's going to depend again, right? If you are doing pretty standard work, then I think definitely digital is going to make sense. You're going to save the salary of that surveyor, of that salesperson, and you're going to be able to give a much quicker response to the customer as well. If you get some photos and a video in, or you do a FaceTime call with that person, you're going to be able to offer them a quote probably the same day, instead of waiting a day for the surveyor, waiting a few more days for the quote to go out. So I think speed and ease and cost reduction there is going to be so vital. If, though, you're doing work that's very high-end, a new kitchen or a new fire and security system, then there's nothing like being in front of someone, shaking their hand, taking proper measurements, trying to inspire that customer to go with your business versus someone else that's really going to help you win that job.
Nice. So a couple of interesting stories there about how companies quote. But why don't we get an expert involved who knows a lot more about it? Jason, I know you've recently been speaking with TrueQuote, right?
Yeah, I had a chat with Robbie. TrueQuote is a piece of technology that helps plumbing, heating and gas companies provide quotes through their website. Robbie, thanks for joining us today. Do you want to give us a brief introduction about yourself and TrueQuote?
Hi, Jason. Thanks for the invite. My name is Robbie Trainer. I'm the Managing Director of TrueQuote. We have an online quoting tool which we supply to heating installers to allow them to generate new work for the business and give a customer an instant online quote from their website.
Do you find typically, though, businesses use this as a sort of price guide, or very much an exact price sort of buy online type model?
Some guys want to use it and take it to the point of sale, and they were asking us to build card details. They want to take payment there and then. We never took it to that point, and the reason being is I still think there's an element of risk of doing it remotely, because you pop a floorboard and go, oh, that's a one-pipe system, or, oh, no, the gas isn't adequate, we need a new gas run. This isn't stuff that can be picked up instantly online as part of that process of giving the customer an instant quote. There's still an element of stuff you'd have to check, or maybe take it on the chin. If you want to take the payment at that point or get to the point of sale there, you'd have to accommodate some stuff that you cannot actually see, as opposed to when you're doing it online. And if you're happy to do that, then fine. But for me, I would still say use the quoting tool as a door opener, get the lead, and get that interaction going with the customer at that point. That's the key element of it, to get you started with that customer. Because everybody now, if they want something, they just pick the phone up and Google it quickly to see what they want. Everybody. When the adverts are on, and when the soap's on, they'll quickly have a look. And if an advert's flashed on for a boiler during the break, and they need one, it's a reminder, so they'll quickly look on their phone to see. And if they hit a website that can give them a price like that, at least they know a ballpark figure there or thereabouts for their property size and install type, what it might be. And that could be the difference of whether they pick the phone up or not. So that was the key, is to get the installers in the door at that point via the internet with a mobile quote solution like that, and get the interaction started at that point. So that was where we wanted to start with it.
How do you feel convenience then influences that buying decision?
I think it's massive because, well, certainly now as well, we've seen a lot of activity, a lot more quotes going through all the websites during lockdown, loads more for this time of year. Because people are a little bit frightened out there, I think, so they just check it online and they don't necessarily want people in the house at the moment. And if it's a necessity, which a boiler is, if it breaks down, then they'll just quickly have a look and do that online, on the phone, on a laptop, because they need it. And they can't just say, oh, yeah, come round and have a look, because they don't want somebody wandering around the home in the current situation. So we've seen a lot of increase in the quotes at this time, for this time of year. So I think convenience is huge.
And that must play a big part in the way that you're thinking about TrueQuote as well for the future. Do you think in-person quoting then will ever be a thing of the past?
No, I don't think you'll take it out entirely. I think there's a window that the customer wants to look through, and whether they open it and go through is whether they've got that right feeling at the front end. I think you could almost get a quote in any industry. You could get a quote for most things. In the heating industry, a couple of year ago, online you couldn't. You could get a quote for a car. You could choose your windows, choose the alloys you want, what spec you want inside the car. You couldn't always do that a few years ago as well when you're looking to buy a new car, but you can now. And the heating industry is changing a little bit, where you're allowing customers a little bit of choice to say, well, I want that boiler, I want that control, I want that filter. What's the warranty? What warranty can I have? Do I need a flush? All of that sort of stuff is just building it to get the customer to the end point. And one, it might be what they want to pay, but it's really, if they're not going to move house, do they want peace of mind with a warranty for 10 years? They're looking for that sort of stuff. And some of the analysis we've done on the sales going through all of the websites using TrueQuote is 60. Initially, when we started, we had a standard and premium package as an offer for the customer. 65% of the customers through all of the websites chose the premium package. It wasn't a race to the bottom. People are looking for a good deal, not necessarily the cheapest option. They're looking for something that suits their situation. So it's a good deal that's getting chosen more through all of the websites than it is the cheapest option.
Super interesting as well, because I've been having conversations and have had conversations with quite a few of the manufacturers over the last maybe 12 months or more. And what's been quite interesting is the shift from them advertising directly to the installers to them also understanding that now consumers have a much bigger impact on the ultimate decision. It's not just about the installer turning up and saying, here's your options, which one do you want? But customers themselves are coming forward and say, I've seen this, I'm interested in this thing, I'm interested in a Nest, I'm interested in this type of control, I'm interested in this type of boiler. And so there's definitely a lot more choice now, and there's a lot more demand for choice. And I think, installers have definitely reacted to that. Again, TrueQuote, I've seen, the multiple options that you can give them. Even Commusoft has been on top of that in terms of saying, give them more than one option, because ultimately, as you said, you can't assume that the person wants the cheapest. They just want what's going to suit their house, their environment, and their budget. And I think that choice is ultimately going to lead, hopefully, to higher priced jobs for installers as well.
Yeah.
What do you think is in store for the future of quoting for new boilers then? Where do you see the industry going?
There's a lot of installers who haven't really taken it on board yet. And I think they will start to. We mentioned lockdown before, and I think that's changed people's perception a little bit and give them a little bit of worry about letting people into their homes, like I mentioned before. But convenience, like you said before, is the big thing. Can they get a quote like that for their property type, their install type? And what we have found is, speaking to a lot of the installers as well, is customers won't necessarily always put their name and address into the website. But if they like what they see, a lot of the installers we speak to tell us that they just pick the phone up. As soon as they see the price on the website, they'll pick the phone up to that business and say, I'm on your website, I've got this price for is that correct? Yes, that's correct. They'll confirm on the phone. Okay, can you come round? So it's, even if it just starts the interaction, having it on there, then that's a good thing.
Amazing. Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks for your time. Cheers.
So it's great to hear from those guys. No doubt they're filling a gap in the market, and it's a sure sign that convenience is king at every stage. So today we've spoken through how technology has influenced convenience. What are some of the key takeaways from your end, Jason?
So I think what we've learned today is that one size just doesn't fit all when it comes to convenience and the strategies that you use. If you're incredibly reactive as a business, then location and time is going to play a massive part in how you provide your service to your customers. If you're predominantly working with installation or a mixture of works, then the information you provide your customers out of hours on your website, through a chatbot, or just generally how you communicate is going to be absolutely imperative to providing that convenient experience. We spoke to TrueQuote today. They provide technology to make quoting more convenient online. Ultimately, the more friction you have there in your customer journeys, the more inconvenient it's going to be to your customers.
As always, feel free to share this video with your network. You can find us on social media, just search for Commusoft. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. I'm going to head downstairs now to my super convenient shop and grab a beer. Cheers.
Enjoy. See you next time.